Hi everybody, it's Katina with Atomica Nuclei Tin Jewelry, and today's video is for anyone who is wanting to get started in making jewelry out of cookie tins or tea tins. My other videos explain how to alter the tin, but for anybody who wants to know how to get started, this video is for you. Okay, so first of all, what I get asked all the time is, what kind of tins do you use? Well, I use all kinds. So, tin canisters like this one right here. This is a Clinique canister. It's pretty lightweight. It's got a lid, it's got a bottom, it's got nice paint, and that's something that you have to keep in mind, that sometimes tins aren't painted. They've got actually paper, I don't know, like a wallpaper on them instead, and you can't do anything with that. So check out your tins, before you buy them. But there's this kind. There's these. This is a biscuit tin. This tin I bought off of eBay. And it is by a brand called Daher, D-A-H-E-R. That's a great brand to remember. They have very attractive tins in all kinds of sizes. They have great artwork on them. The tin is kind of thick, so it gives some sustenance to the jewelry that you make. Okay, so there are these kinds. There's tin trays. This is a Daher tray. It's real nice and thick. This will be great for making like bracelets and pendants and those jewelry pieces that need to be a little bit heavier. This is great for that. You can also use just like your regular cookie. Look, cookies and this one is a shortbread tin. So even just, everyday tins that you run across at, yard sales, flea markets, antique stores, you can Google them. You can find all these items on Etsy, on eBay. They're pretty reasonably priced. Sometimes you can get them in lots, several of them in one grouping. But this is what you need, all tins, okay? Now, you've got your tin, you're like, what do I cut it with? Well, first, you need a good pair of gloves, okay? Now, these are dipped gloves. I don't know if that's rubber or I don't know what it is. But anyway, you want some dipped gloves. These are X-Grip, or I don't know, it says Frog Grip on there too. But you can Google this. If you Google X-Grip, these will come up. They're not expensive gloves, and you can get them pretty easily. But you'll want gloves that are dipped, because as you're cutting and working with the tin, it can hurt you. And before I started using gloves, I had Band-Aids on all my fingers, and I don't recommend that for anybody. So use your gloves, okay? Get yourself a decent pair of metal shears. I got these at either Walmart or Meijer in the hardware section, and I think they might have been $10. But anyway, these are heavy duty, because when you're dismantling your tin, okay, you'll want to, you have to cut through all of it. And so there's a lip that's pretty thick that you'll have to cut through, and then you'll want to find the seam and cut down the seam, okay? And then once you cut down the seam, sometimes this bottom pops off, but most of the time I find that it doesn't really pop off. So then you have to cut around the outside of the tin, and then when you're done, you'll want to cut this lip part off, okay? And then I always save my bottoms, because you can stamp on these, you can alcohol ink on these, you can use this part of the tin just like you use this part of the tin, okay? So don't throw anything away. Don't throw the lids away. Cut the lip part off and keep this. So you really want to utilize as much of the tin as you can. All right, so now that you have the tin broken down, it's gonna be in sheets, kind of like this. And this is where we start to make the jewelry, okay? So there's a couple different things that you can do to get the shapes that you want. You can use, and I use these a lot, stencils, okay? So these stencils, they're a real thick plastic. They are by a polymer clay artist named Melanie Muir. And you can find her on, she has a website, but you can also find her on Etsy. And so for her, for stencils, you just lay them on your tin, and you can see if you're wanting to get certain parts of a pattern in there, you can certainly do that. And then I just take a Sharpie and trace around the shape that I want to cut out, okay? And then I'll cut it, and then you can cut it out. And then if there's Sharpie left on the shape that you've cut out, you can take a little alcohol and remove it, or sometimes I just sand it off, okay? So I recommend Melanie Muir stencils, okay? And also Cool Tools is another great site, a website that you can get all kinds of jewelry shapes. Okay, so, and again, these are a little bit thinner, but still they're a great tool to use. I use these all the time. You just lay them on, trace it, cut it out, you're good to go. Okay, so to cut the shapes that you've traced on your tin, you'll want to use a pair of shears. These are finer shears, okay? These happen to be Lindstrom brand. I got them from Rio Grande. I haven't always used these shears. When I started out, I just bought a pair of shears, metal shears from Hobby Lobby, and they were maybe like $15, something really inexpensive. But as the more you get into the craft of using or making jewelry out of tin, you'll want to invest in a really good pair of shears. There's a lot of different brands out there. You'll just have to figure out which one is going to work for you. So have some metal shears on hand. All right, another thing that you can use is these dies that are typically used for scrapbooking. These are by Sizzix. They are called movers and shapers. Okay, so you would use them with a big kick machine, and if you've ever know anything about scrapbooking, it's a machine that you roll through, and you can do embossing, you can cut shapes out, all that kind of stuff. But these you would use with this is a magnet shuttle that you put through your movers and shapers, and then you would put your tin, you'd make a sandwich. So you'd put figure out where you want your tin on here. You would put the tin on there, you'd put a piece on top, and then you would take this and run it through your big kick machine. Okay, and then the trick with these is you can only go one direction, one pass. Don't make it go backwards, because the pressure of that reverse action can put too much pressure on your die here and break it, and you don't want to do that, and I've done that and I don't recommend it. So if you're wanting to save your dies to use for a long time, one pass through one way, and then if then what's going to happen is that it'll cut out some pieces for you. Okay, see this? All right, so and sometimes they're a little bit wonky when you get them out. They're not always perfect. And what I will do then is I'll make a different sandwich. I'll move these. So I'll have my shuttle here, and then I'll put a plastic plate down, or whatever they're called, and then I'll just take an embossing folder of any style and just lay it on top, because I just want to flatten it. And then I'll put another plate on it, and then I'll run this through my big kick machine, and it'll make my shapes perfectly flat, and that's the way I want to do it. Plus, it'll it'll have them work harden them just a little bit. That pressure of flattening, every time you work metal, it helps harden it a little bit. So you can do that. All right, so then get this stuff out of the way. You can also use these types of dies. Now this one is another Sizzix die, and these they made a long time ago. I have no idea if they still make them. Actually, I don't even know if they still make these. I heard somewhere that they didn't, but you can probably find them still on Etsy or eBay. I think a set of these runs around $20, $30, but prices, you know, depending on if they're still being made these days, that's kind of what I paid for them. These shapes you can use with the Big Kick machine too. You would just put your metal on there and then just make a sandwich using only the two plastic, okay? And then take this sandwich and run it through your Big Kick machine, and it'll cut out the shapes, okay? So these are great. You can still find these on, I know you can find them on eBay, and you might be able to find them on Etsy, and they have different shapes of these too, but this plastic, these will hold up, and these cut really nicely. All right, and so then there's also this style, okay? And these I got off of eBay. They were recommended to me, and so I thought, okay, I'll try one of these. These come from China. I think they're around 15 bucks. You can probably find them on sale for a little bit less than that. These you would use the same way. You would make a sandwich. Well, depending on your Big Kick machine, you'd make a sandwich. I don't know. Yeah, you make a sandwich with these. So you would put your metal on here, make a sandwich, roll it through your Big Kick machine, and it'll pop out the shape. Now, if you're getting started with making tin jewelry and you want to try one of these, you can try it. I don't believe in the longevity of these. I don't believe that they cut well. I would prefer, I've purchased them, I use them a little bit, but I would prefer to either hand cut, or I would prefer to use a disc cutter, which we're going to get to in just a second. For what you pay and the hassle it is to sometimes get these shapes to come out of the tin, because here's one, I don't know if you can see it, but this is one of these dies. Let's see, I've got it right here. It's this die. And it perforates it, but sometimes it doesn't cut it all the way, and that's a drawback. And on thin tin, and this is pretty thin tin, sometimes it'll cut and sometimes it won't. You definitely can't use this on any thick tin. It's not going to do anything at all. It might even break your Big Kick machine. So my recommendation on these is to use with caution and maybe save your money for something that's gonna last a little bit longer. You can get these shapes out using, let's see, I think I used some needle nose, and you can just wiggle this back and forth, and then that'll pop free. But it's a lot of work. I think those dies from China are really meant to use with like leather, and that's fine. But I mean, it'll come out. Do you see how that's starting to come out? But then, you know, sometimes, you know, by the time you're getting done with the piece, it's kind of mangled and it's not exactly what you want to do. So what I would do then is make that sandwich with a embossing folder. Put an embossing folder there, put another plate there and then run it through the big pick, and it'll flatten it. I'll show you here. It'll flatten those pieces. But then again, you know, you're thinking, how much time and energy have you invested in just getting this piece of tin out? So I do, like I said, I do a lot of hand cutting. I also use disc cutters, okay? Especially for stuff that's symmetrical. I would not dare cut a circle from a stencil because you're just not gonna get the symmetry that you need on that. So what you need to do to use these, this one comes from Rio Grande. They have a website that's got all kinds of fabulous, fabulous jewelry tools on there. I'm a sucker for a jewelry tool. But they have different shapes on there, and that's great for, this is a great investment, okay? It's gonna cost you $300, but if you think about the ease of using this and the quickness, and you're not gonna have to sit and like pry this out because you used one of those die cuts from China, it's well worth the investment. So to use a disc cutter, you would want to slip your tin in one side, and then I'm not saying this is a shim, this is just what I have in my hand right now that I'm going to use, but you would want to put a piece of that same tin on the other side. So when you flatten it down, you're flattening the whole contraption down equally, putting pressure everywhere equally. And so when you put your die in there, or your cutter in there, and you're not gonna tip your die in one way, everything's gonna be even down, blop, cut out your shape, and everything is gonna be easier, and it's gonna make this last longer, okay? So just a word on how to, when you use a cutter, you always want some kind of lubricant. This is just a jar of WD-40 that I have in there. They also have Burr Life is what this is called, Rio Grande. You got to have something that is going to lubricate your punch. So when you put it in there and hit it with your 2-pound brass mallet or whatever you're going to use, that it'll make a really clean cut, okay? Use lubricant on these every single time, some type of lubricant. I like WD-40, it works well. A little bit messy, but I like it. Okay, so a word about disc cutters, they're not all created equal either, okay? Just like tins, they're not all created equal either. You can find disc cutters on eBay, and they won't, not $100. Don't buy them. You want to invest in something that is going to hold up, okay? I bought one of those disc cutters that was like 50 or 60 bucks, and you get what you pay for. Don't buy one. Save your money, invest it in something really great. I'll pull out this one. This cutter is from Meki Supply. You can find them on Etsy, okay? And their cutters are absolutely fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. He's out of India. He can make you any type of custom cutter that you want. You just send him a drawing of the shapes that you want, and he will make you a cutter and get it to you in reasonable time and at a reasonable price. His cutters generally cost, if you get the ones that are already made, I think they start at like $160. If you get one that is custom, it'll cost you better than $200. Okay, well worth the investment. If you think of how many pairs of earrings, or how many bracelets, or how many pendants and necklace components are you going to make, these are well worth every penny. okay? Because if you really love making jewelry and you want to get in that niche that's a little bit different than everybody out there who's just stringing beads, this turns into art, and it's an investment. And I fully recommend the disc cutters, and I super recommend if you're using stencils and hand cutting. So that's my recommendation for you. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to discuss is when you have that thin tin, like this is pretty thin tin. This is from one of those shortbread cans, like the long one that I showed you. This is a shortbread tin. So what do you do to give this a little bit more substance, or however you want to say it? You know, something that's going to make it seem a little bit thicker, not real flimsy. I don't make jewelry out of Coke tins because I just like thin tin. So something that's going to help work harden this, if you have thinner tin, are embossing folders. This one's by Cuttlebug. It's an Anna Griffin. There's other ones. Let's see, I got this one off of Spellbinders. These are Sizzix. I think these are called Texture Impressions. You can get, here's a Tim Holtz one. Let's see, you can order, now you can get these from China too. I got this embossing folder from China. And then you can also, Darice has a whole bunch. These are great tools. They help work harden that metal and make it seem not as flimsy as really what I'm wanting to say. It's not going to be as flimsy. It's going to give it a harder texture. Okay. Now I have videos where I have used these texture folder or embossing folders to emboss metal and then alter it. So I have those, and I'll link a couple of those because it's really fun, especially when you get into tin that is kind of plain, to see what you can do with it, with the embossing folders, with patinas, with alcohol inks, with gilder's paste. There's a whole, it's limitless what you can do to alter this tin to make some really, really cool jewelry. Another thing I need to tell you is sanding. So yep, it's sharp, so you want to be careful. And I always use, I just use 400 grit sandpaper. Now they don't come in strips like this. I cut them, but if you go into the automotive section of, your Walmart or Meijer, they sell this in sheets, and it's really inexpensive. I just cut it down to where it's more manageable for me to use, and they have it in different types. Like this is a 180 grit, so I use this when I'm trying to, if I've embossed something and that paint's thick, I'll use this because it's a coarser. But then I just use this to rough up the sides on most of the shapes. And if I need to, I'll use a metal file. So this one has a pretty good point, and it'll be kind of hard to sand that down with a 400 grit. So I'll just take this metal file and round that out a little bit. Okay, and then finish it off with a little bit of this 400 grit sandpaper and just go all the way around it. Now again, use gloves. Don't be like me right now. Use your gloves always. Save your fingers and your fingernails, because a lot of times when you're sanding, your fingernails can get boogered up too. But anyway, making tin jewelry is fun. If you ever really get into it, it is art. And if you ever want to check out anything I do, I have a Facebook page. It's Atomica Nuclei on Facebook. And I sell directly from Facebook. So if you're ever interested in anything that you see there, you can, if it's on there, it's available for purchase. And if you liked this video, hey, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Anyway, y'all have a great day, and I'll think of another cool video to do here next month or so. See you later. Bye.